And it's Lance Nielsen from the Outcast Creative, and I am just back from seeing the long-awaited sequel to Avatar 2, The Way of the Water. Well, the big question is, was it worth the wait? Did I enjoy the film? Did I come out of the cinema feeling like I wanted to go back and watch it again? To quote another friend, well, I won't call him a friend exactly, but another reviewer I love on YouTube, there is a lot to unpick from Avatar 2. So let's talk about it. The basic story to Avatar 2 is Jake Sully and his family. It's there's a big narrative that takes us a year on. At the beginning of the story, we see babies being born. The family and the culture are evolving slightly, incorporating the technology and some of the elements that have been left behind by the Sky People, the clan, their new kind of home tree, as it were. I don't want to give too much away. I will get into some spoilers later, but I don't want to give too much away at the beginning. I'll let you know when there's spoilers. Eventually, we fast forward a decade or so, a little bit longer, I think, and the Sky People return. They return, and they return in huge numbers. They land, they clear an area, they establish a bridgehead, and they're here to stay this time. Now, we don't know a huge amount about why they've come back, but we do know that they are also interested in stuff that can only be found in the water on Avatar, and I'll get to that in a bit, on Pandora rather. So, things I liked about the film. I like the story. It's a simple story about protecting family. I like the action. It's very well choreographed. You can see what's going on. You can follow it easily. I like the way the characters who have died in the first film are brought back in this film. I quite liked the way they were brought back. I thought that was quite clever. And it doesn't mean that these characters can be brought back endlessly, but it worked. It really worked. I like the new characters for the most part, with one exception who I don't think was handled particularly well. But I'll come back to that in a sec. So I like all of those things. The technology, the graphics, computer, CGI, all that looks better than ever. The detail in the world, particularly when we get to the underwater scenes, is absolutely outstanding. He really has pushed technology to a new heights. This is not like watching a battle scene from an Aquaman film. This is something else. It is on a whole other level. And for the most part, I really enjoyed the film. It ticks most of the boxes for me. I love all the new hardware that the bad guys have got. I like all the new technology they brought in, the different vehicles, the boats, the underwater vessels and so forth. I felt that there were some scenes missing, that we didn't see everything that happened there. No doubt there'll be an extended version to come. Yeah, it was a really, really good movie. For the most part, I thought that the actors, including the new actors, for the most part were good. The characters are well realized. Everybody has nice arcs, and there's a lot of good things to say about this movie. On the whole, I've got to say that I liked it. You should see it on the cinema. You should see it on the biggest screen you can. I saw it in 2D, and I'm going to go and see it in 3D on Monday. So it gets a pretty high rating from me, with a couple of exceptions, and these are the things I'm going to talk about now. Where I think it lets it down is this. Jake's family and their dialogue is very Americanized, and there's a lot of bro and shit and all this kind of thing. And I personally felt it would have been better if actually we were always looking at them as Navi people. I know they're kind of half-breeds and all the rest of it, but I thought it would be more interesting to actually have all of their scenes spoken with subtitles. Now, that probably would have been a massive pain in the ass to do. I felt, yeah, so just let me go back on that. So I felt where the film lets itself down a bit is in the Americanization of the dialogue with Jake Sully's family and his children. I felt like I wanted to see them more as the culture of the Navi, even though they're a mixed breed family. I wanted to see all of their dialogue with subtitles. I felt the bro and hey and shit and all this kind of thing. That kind of, for me, that took me out of the world a little bit. And I don't need to see that American dialogue in this film. I don't need to see those lines. Now, that may have been easier to do it that way. And I get that they speak in English some of the time. And they also they kind of did a Hunt for Red October thing where they said, and from here on in, the characters are going to speak in English because it's easier. They kind of did that at one point, literally like that. I felt that was a bit of a cop out. I would have quite happily watched 75% of the film in subtitles and felt like I was on Pandora and just had the RDA characters speak in English. That is my main gripe, and some of that dialogue lets it down. It's just a bit jarring. The rest of the dialogue is okay. The rest of the dialogue is fine. There are a couple of little things that are not that are shoehorned in, and there's a couple of little things that bugged me, like, this kid called Spider, who's a baby who gets left behind and grows up with the Navi, who is the son of one of the other characters in the first film. He kind of felt a bit awkward, not just because that was his role. And again, he felt very American. And I wanted his character to be more like a Navi. And I didn't want him to have an American accent. I wanted him to speak in broken English when he spoke in broken English, because I wanted him to feel more contrived than he was. I like his story. I like his arc. I just didn't like his dialogue. The actor was okay, but I think the dialogue let him down a bit. I like the new culture. I love all the new detail and the new tribal stuff. All of that stuff. I love all of that. And I think that it's set up the sequels perfectly. We're going to be looking at some really interesting sequels coming, and I mean, no doubt that this story will end in the battle of all battles on screen, which is something I hope I live to see. But yeah, it's a good film. Go and see it at the cinema. There are a couple of things that let it down. I mean, how much oxygen is in that kid's oxygen tank? Because I never seem to see him refill it. But and I mean, also when he goes ape shit on the bridge, and those guys just would have killed him. They would have shot him there and then. So there were a couple of things that I felt broke the rule of the reality a little bit, but they didn't destroy the enjoyment of the film for me. And this was still a really good movie. James Cameron's done it again. He delivers. He entertains you. He takes you to amazing worlds, and that's what you want a filmmaker to do, to take you on an exciting and adventurous journey. Tell us a great story. And I thought the story was good. Dialogue occasionally lets it down, but the story was great. Effects were great. Go and see Avatar 2. It's an absolute yes from me.